It's Marty signing in. Welcome to part 18 of the C and SFML 2 tutorial series. So when you guys asked me how I created sprites with GIMP the way I do it, and essentially what the sprites are is, oh, whoops. I did not realize OBS was up, but whatever, it's an intro. So what the sprites are is they're like those guys, like actually in the game, that's what the sprites are. So the sprites are extremely important because that's in essence what makes the game original. So you make all your own sprites, and then it's like completely your game, and it's actually a ton of fun to do. So what a sprite sheet is a sprite sheet is just, it's instead of just having one sprite on an image, it's a whole bunch of sprites all grouped together, like you would see in here. So that this way you don't have to create a new image and load it up every single time. You can just cut the image out, which this saves file size and time rather, because then you don't have to load it. It saves a lot of lines of code because then you don't have to reload the same. You don't have to retype the same lines of code. So this is a more advanced sprite sheet here. So the sprites are essentially the characters inside the game. So there's a couple other ways of making sprites. Some people use pixel arrays, which is a bit complicated and it takes a long time to do. But using sprites, I've found it's just the simplest, fastest, easiest way of doing it. So you can see I've got I don't know, but probably at least 40 or something sprites here. And all these sprites is essentially another frame of animation. Works the same way that the old flipbooks, if you used to do, if you were a kid, you draw a little ball bouncing and it'd be just in a different position as you flip it. That's the way that animation essentially works on computers. Now the character is a important component of the game because it essentially makes it unique in some ways. But in Undertale, actually, Undertale didn't really focus too much on graphics. They focused on gameplay rather. So if you're not going to focus on graphics and you don't want yourself to look the best, that's okay. Just focus more heavily on gameplay then. So the graphics don't have to be the best. You can still have fun with good old pixelated graphics like these. At the end of the day, after I did all these, I finally thought I was whew, going to sell the game. I'm like, well, this game just looks like pretty much any other 2D platform, which it did. So if you want to sell a game, make it unique is number one. Unique sells. But anyway, enough of that about that. We're going to actually start making the sprites. What I like to use is GIMP, simply because it has a ton of features and it's completely free, and it works on Linux, Mac, or Windows. So if you have Photoshop, you can of course use that. There should be relatively the same between Photoshop and GIMP. So let's start by downloading the installer for GIMP, which I'm going to do on my Linux simply because I just feel safer using Linux for internet, because most viruses are targeted for Windows machines, not Linux. So awesome advantage there. Alright, so just go to your favorite web browser. It doesn't really matter what you will have. I've just got the new Firefox. So then just type in here, just go with GIMP. GIMP page, hit enter. You should be taken to the GIMP official GIMP page. So just click on that. Or you could click on downloads. Whatever. And then you should just click on the latest one, download 2.8.22. If you're on Linux already, it should by default be installed on your Linux. Most Linux distros, it comes default installed. So click download, and from here, you can install for Linux / Unix systems. So it's like the Mac, the Linux, stuff like that. Or you can just keep on scrolling. Wait, is that already up here? Microsoft Windows. So in our case, we're just going to go with Microsoft Windows. So click that. And I'm just going to download it directly. And a little thing should pop up saying opening GIMP. Just click save file and hit OK. Alright, so now that we've got GIMP downloaded, we're going to want to install it. So I have mine located on my USB. By default, yours is probably going to be located to my PC or whatever, and it should be underneath downloads. Right there. So just double click on it to open it right up, and then it should load up a quick second. Give it a few minutes. I don't want to ask for administrative privileges, just say yes to it. On most Linux system, it comes pre-installed, so if you're on Linux, just skip this step, don't worry about it. Hit OK. And from there, just hit install. You don't really need to customize it. That's just if you want to take a look at the, documents and whatever, the licensing and stuff like that. So hit install, and it should install a second. The reason I like to use GIMP via any other program is simply because it has the most resources. The user interface on it, I definitely didn't pick it because of the user interface on it. It has the most features out of all the free software I've ever seen, and I didn't feel like paying $50 for Photoshop or something like that. The learning curve on GIMP, it's I mean, it takes a while to get used to and fully understand the user interface, but once you get a good handle on it, things really speed up, and once you get used to it, that's really what it all boils down to, what you're used to. So eventually you can learn it. So we've finished the installer, hit finish, and it should create a desktop shortcut, which it didn't for me for some reason, but easy enough, just click and drag it over to the desktop. So just double click on GIMP to open it up, and in a minute it should be up and running. So, well, hold on a second. Before your eyes go completely cross-eyed and you just about barf your guts out from the hurt, I mean, I don't know what the developers had in mind with all these 50 million windows all over the place, but just take a deep breath. We're going to fix this. So first thing we want to do is we'll click Windows, click single window mode. That alone is the difference between scaring a user away from GIMP and it being a user loving GIMP. So just close out of pretty much everything for now. I'm just going to close out of it. Just, there we go. So we've closed out everything except for a toolbox. If you did close out the toolbox, that's okay. Just click to Windows here and just click New Toolbox right there. So I've got my toolbox nicely located over here. You can drag it to make it like thin or whatever. Drag it to however you like it. But then what we want you to do is we're going to access a few more tools. So click Windows, Dockable Dialogues, hover over it. First of all, tool options is an important one we're going to need. I'm going to drag everything over to my left just to make it look nice. It's really a preference up to you. Then you hit Windows again, Dockable Dialogues. We're going to need colors as well. So it's colors is somewhere around here. Colors, right there. So then it's gonna, by default, you're gonna have to tab these two around. If you don't want to tab those two around, between the two, just click the one you don't want to, and just if you see that little blue thing, let go. So you click and drag it like that. So now I've got your tool options down here, which looks pretty nice. If you want, of course, flip it around. Of course, I'm pretty sure you can flip it around, but it's really just preference. The last thing we're gonna need is click Windows, Dockable Dialogues, and then we're also gonna need, what is it? Layers. Layers is very important. It's actually like the essence of GIMP. The layers is what makes it a huge lifesaver. So just drag that layers down here because we're going to be switching between these a lot. We're going to need our colors pretty much open. Plus the colors look so nice, it'd be a shame to hide them behind a layer. So that's about all we're going to need for now for all the tools. So just hit, finally, we are officially ready to create a new image. So hit Control N. That should bring up this window here. Now you can create this as big as you want. Just the important thing is just make sure it's in pixels. So I'm going to go, if you're going to go with pixel art, you're going to want to make it small. So I'm going to go with 50 by 50 because I haven't really done too much anything else besides pixel art. All these new advanced new graphics, they're not as appealing as simply like a nice good old Doom style graphics. So anyway, you can make this as big as you want it. Just be sure that it's in pixels. That's the important thing. So I'm going to go with 50 by 50. You can do so as well if you want. So there you go. So now we've created a new image and a new layer. So underneath layers here, first we can make the color wheel a bit smaller so it's a bit easier to see the layers and whatnot. So click layers, and then you're going to want to right click on background, which is the initial layer, and then click add alpha channel. Then hit Control A to select everything inside the layer and hit delete. So now if you see this checkered background, that means you've deleted the background and it can continue to draw. So then what we're going to do, if we're doing pixel art, we're going to use a pencil. So use a pencil, go to tool options, scroll all the way, just hover over size and just scroll with your mouse wheel all the way down. If you're wondering how I zoomed in and out like that, just hit holding Control and then use the zoom wheel, and that should zoom you in and out. If you want to move around your viewport, hold in the middlemost button, like click it and hold it. If you see the little navigation icon come up, then just wiggle your mouse around, and then you should be able to zoom in and out and navigate fairly easy. So what we're going to do is there's several different styles to pixel art. Like one is where you have a black background around everything, and then you use the paint bucket, and then you dump something inside it. Or there's a completely different style where you just go with, instead of having a black background, you just have a darker color background. So then you just go like something like that initially. What was that? I'm going to show you guys how I like to use either style. So first of all, what the heck? Is this like a computer ghost or something? So anyway, I'm just going to delete that a second. I'm going to show you how I like to use the best of both styles. So first, click the little color wheel here. It's much easier to use than the gradients. So then, if to go with all black, it's divided into 3 triangles. This one is as saturated as the color can be. From here, you have darkness. From here, you have lightness. Then everything in between, from saturation and whatnot. So I'm going to go with a completely black color. I'm going to click the pencil tool, and I'm going to zoom way in. But first, unselect everything. So to unselect everything, just click the square selection tool and just click on the screen. Easy enough. Hit that pencil button, and let's zoom on in. So let's just say I'm going to make something like a shield, something looking awesome. So I'm going to go with something about that big. It really all comes down to preference of how you like to make your pixel art. I prefer to make mine just, I don't know what style I guess it would be called, but just, you can make this all really however you like it. Whoops, I messed up a little bit there. There we go. So, and then I'm also going to want to delete this one. So I'm just going to select this little pixel here, hit delete, go back to the pencil button. And if you find that you are not able to draw anything, that's probably because you have a selection going on. So you want to click that select button and then just click on the screen to create 0 selection. So there you go. So that looks pretty good for a shield, except we're going to need to fill it with a color. So I'm going to go with something like a nice, like a solid looking blue like that, or something like that. It doesn't really matter what color it is. And then click the dump bucket, and underneath two options, there's a few things you want to take note of. Is threshold means how much it will overwrite other colors. So if you have a really high threshold, it's going to overwrite everything. So I'm going to do that with Control Z. If you have a low threshold, it's only going to overwrite pixels of the same color, the exact same color. So it's only going to overwrite black. So I'm going to go with the middle button here, and now this looks good, except it just looks like a flat little shield. We're going to want to add some gradients to it. So to do that, you can actually use the gradient tool. I'm just going to show you how I like to use it a second here. The way you do it is underneath, you should see these two colors you've got selected here. So you're going to want to go with a dark color for the background, or either vice versa. So we're going to go with dark color for the background, and so we're going to make it darker than that, really. Hit OK. So now I've got a dark color for the background and a light color for the foreground. So then what you want to do is if you just drag it and let go, it's going to create the gradient. You can see how it created the gradient as far as I dragged. If you want to create it even bigger, but it's going to fill up your entire image. So, but it would actually be just easier if you just click the little color picker button. Or what you can also do, a quick little shortcut that I use all the time, is click the pencil button. If you draw a little something, okay, now undo that with Control Z. If you're holding Control now, you should see the little color picker. Now you can pick whatever color you want. I can pick black. I've got black now. I can pick blue. I've got blue now. So anyways, I'm going to pick the blue. Then what I do is, if you go over to the levels little thing right here, to scales, click here. This is underneath V. Then you can adjust just how dark it is. So darken that right up to give it a real 3D effect. So, and then darken it up, and then just right on the sides like that. So now we're going to need one. It's looking pretty nice, but we're going to need one more value in between the two. So that'll be like that color there. And now that looks like it's really popping out like a 3D shield or something like that. Yet it's still 2D, of course. Well, if you think the background looks kind of ugly, what you can also do is use the color you want your sprite to be. So I'm using this color right here, and then just darken it way up. But we want to make sure it's still light enough that you can still see it's not black. Then just fill in the background fill in the outline with the desired color. And from there, you should still have an outline, except you don't have a black outline. So it's really preference. If you want to have the background, like the black outline, you can do that, of course. Either way works, to be honest. So anyway, but now all we've done so far is just created a sprite. So the way I do it is I'd continue creating sprites, and so select a sprite to create another one. So just select it with the little square thing. So go select it, and then Control C to copy it. I'm going to Control V. Now you're going to go to the Layers tab. And under here, you probably see floating selection, paste a layer. Click the little, it's very kind of hard to see, but the create new layer button. Click that button. Now you've created essentially a new layer. So now with this new layer, you can move this layer around. Let's see, using the move tool, we can move it around. But one thing we can see about this is that this layer is always on top. What if we don't want it to be on top? That's okay then. Using the layers, you can just click on the layer you want to move, click it, and then click the move down or move up. Now that I've moved it down one, it's going to be underneath it. So that's essentially the real power behind GIMP. So anyways, now at this point, if you're like, say, oh, it's supper time, you have to leave a second here. Now you can actually, if you just save the image, then it saves everything, saves all the layers and everything, and then you can just shut it down and then come back and continue editing. So you're going to go File in the corner, Save As. You can save this really wherever you want. I typically save my projects in pictures. This is a project, not an actual image. So this isn't the final image. So then you just name it whatever you want. I can name it image if you want. The important thing is the extension is XCF. That's the important thing. Hit save and hit replace. I already have one of those, but whatever. Then you can close out. And now if you go back to wherever it is, just double check to make sure it's there. Pictures. And you've got this little image thing. Double click on that with GIMP. So in the meantime, you can like shut it down, go have supper, do whatever you need to do. Come right back, and you'll see that the layers are exactly the same, and you can continue editing it where you left it. So let's just say we're going to create a few sprites, but we don't want to go Control C, add new layer button every time we want to create a duplicate of the sprite. So what you can do is click the sprite you want to make a duplicate of. So that's going to be paste layer. I'm just going to move it up one because it just looks better with the background on the bottom. Click on it. Click the little duplicate button right there. And you should have a new layer that you can move around using the move tool. So we can move it over. And what I like to do is I like to keep a pixel in between each sprite just so I can visually see that there's a difference between the two sprites. But now we want to actually save it. But there's two problems here. Let's scroll it to actual size, which is about this. So this is actual size. which that looks way too small. You can't even see it. I mean, my glasses are thick, but they're not quite that thick to see it. So we're gonna have to scale it a second. So just scroll in on it. Now we could scale all of these manually. We could scale each layer manually, but we're gonna merge down. And oh, I missed one thing. The background. This part of the image is actually still part of the background, which I like to have the background completely separate, which is important to me. So just select that shield, Control C it, delete it, so it's gone now, and then just paste it back there again. Click the new layer button. So now you've got it, and now it's off the background. So there we go. So now we can merge all these down into one single layer, or 2 layers, just the background and the shields, to scale them all at the same time, so they'll match up the same. So then what you want to do is just right-click on it, click Scale, or actually just click Merge Down, right-click on the top one again, Merge Down. So now we should have 2 layers. We've got the background, and then we got our little 3 shields. So now what we can do is, using the Scale tool, you just click on the layer you want to scale. So I'm going to select the pasted layer, click on it, and from here you can just click and drag the corners. If you want to just move the location, you can move the location like this, and when you're done, hit Scale. Now you've probably noticed, whoa, there's a bit of transparency here. If I actually scaled it up like this, you see, whoa, now everything's all fuzzy. Well, that is because that works really great if you have high quality images that you want anti-aliased. We don't want, this is pixel art, there's no anti-aliasing in pixel art, or pretty much 0 anti-aliasing in pixel art. So what you want to do is click the tool options, make sure you've got scale selected, and then we'll go interpolation, click none. No interpolation, so that when we scale it, it's going to be the exact same way that we left it. So just click on that layer again, and now if we scale it, it's going to be the exact way we want it. So if you just click on it and then try and scale it, then you're going to have to make sure it's perfect. But there's actually an easier way. Just click reset it. If you hold Control, grab a corner and move it, keeps the aspect ratio, which is a valuable time saver. Now, what if you don't want to just wing it? What if you want to have a specific size? Then, using this little dialog here, you can enter the size in pixels, and then if you lock it here, I'm pretty sure it keeps the same aspect ratio. So if I go with 6, it should now be changed to the same aspect ratio. So if you unlock it now, then you can scale it so that you can change how fat it is or how wide it is without changing how high it is. But if you want to lock it in there, then you can change the width to, I'm going to make the height something like 20 pixels. Click it here again, and now the width is 67 pixels. If this dialog freezes up and it won't scale like that, hold in Control and then scale this a little bit. Don't worry about any of that. Just hold in Control, scale a little bit, and then change the percent from there. So I'm going to keep the same aspect ratio, or for now I'm actually going to want to reset it to 100 by 100. Make sure it resets. There we go, and now it's actually working again. So once you're finished and you get it exactly how you like it, but you might notice, well, the canvas size is way too big for the actual image. So to change that, you can just click on the background underneath layers, image, and then click fit canvas to layers, and it should resize it to layers. Oh, I see why it's not working. It's because we have this little layer here that is the background. So now we can delete that background. So just click on it, click that garbage can in the trash. So now we should see we have only one layer. With this final layer, we can go image, fit canvas to layers. So now it's exactly the way that we want. Perfect. We don't want to change a thing. We want to export it. So just go File, Export As to finally export it as an image. Where we go, Export As. I'm going to say, you can save this wherever you want, and you can name it whatever you want, but there's one step that we have to do before we can actually use it in a game. So I'm going to just browse for where we created, the sprite mapper we made a couple of videos back. So if you haven't done that yet, there's a link in the description to that video so you can make the sprite mapper. We're going to want to save that in the sprite mapper, where this tutorials, sprite mapper, and you're going to save that in data, images, and I'm going to call this one here shields because it's shields. So you can name it whatever you want, just make sure it corresponds with roughly of what it is. So the important thing is that you export it as a PNG or JPEG or something like that. There's tons of different formats to choose from. I do go with PNG just because it gives me high enough quality for what I want. So hit export. That should open up. It says if you already have one there, so you're just going to place it fine. And then that should pop up this dialog. With this dialog, there's a few things we want to edit here. So first thing is the compression level is how much it's going to compress it by. If you want to retain the absolute, the crystal clear quality you have right now, set that to 0. But if you have a quality limit size or like a file size limit, something like a YouTube thumbnail, you're gonna compress it a bit. But since there's no limit to our size, we're gonna go with a 0. And we can uncheck save comments. You can uncheck save creation time. Make sure you have save values from transparent pixels, and hit export when you're done. So it should export it. So now I can close out of this. I'm just going to save the image with Control Save. So it saved the project and the image is exported. So I'm just going to browse to make sure that it did in fact export to the right location. Tutorials, Sprite Mapper, and data, images, shields. And yep, it's exported and everything to the exact right location. So now what we want to do is open up the Sprite Mapper project file that we created a few tutorials back. Again, links in the description to that video if you missed out on it. So double click on open it up. Okay, so now what we want to do is just edit one thing really, and just change to where we go texture, load from file, and make sure it's the sprite sheet texture. Change, instead of shields, or instead of, what was it, sprite sheet, change it to shields or whatever image it is. In my case, it's just going to be data, images, it's going to be shield. So you can change this, you can do whatever you want, whatever you've named it, and then just make sure you have the extension as well. If you don't know what extension is, it should actually say right there on Windows, but just really right click on it, properties, and from there it's .png. So that's an important thing to remember. Make sure just the name is all good and everything. One thing I noticed that there's a bit of a glitch with is the time, the where we're timing this out. We don't want to restart the clock. We just want to go hit enter there and go. We're gonna go game clock and then dot restart, or not dot restart, dot get elapsed time is what we want to do rather, and then dot as seconds, and that line with a semicolon, and then we want to go game clock dot restart dot as seconds. So if we save and run that, it should run all good. No typos. No typos. Yes, it is running good. We move around and it's moving super slowly. So now we can up the speed of, we can up our speed variables. So instead of 0.25, we're gonna want to go with, let's see, instead of 1, we're gonna go with something like 5. So eventually what I settled on was, for if you're going slow, 60 is a good number, and if you're going fast, 120 is a good number. So save that and run that. You can edit all that to your preferences of how fast or slow you want it to go. So we're gonna go right there. Looks good to me because I'm focused on this sprite, so that's what we're gonna be focusing on. And we're gonna move the corner to gather the correct width of it. Now, if you want to be very, very precise about your measurements, you can use Z or X to zoom in, and then you can use the Shift key to slow down the movement, and just let go of the Shift key to go with fast movement. So then when you're zoomed in, it's okay if you're. It's a bit more forgiving if you're overlapping on a pixel or two. Then it's just going to be a bit more forgiving if you're zoomed in more. So gonna go with that. That seems fair to me. And we're done. Hit space. I don't know if I just want to make sure the controls WASD to move the red crosshair, and then the arrow keys to move the actual viewport, and then holding shift to slow it down, and space is when you're filing down. So just want to get that out of the way. And now you go into your project directory, data, output, text. So this is what you're going to want to copy here. So this should tell you the first the X and Y location, and then the width and height of it. So copy those 4 numbers, Control C, and then go to your game directory, the game of where your game is. Open up with code blocks to be sure. And wait, before you open up with code blocks, okay, it's loading up, but just minimize code blocks for now. Before you do that, you're going to want to copy your newly created image, wherever that might be. Mine's in C++, tutorials, bit of a rabbit hole to follow here. And Sprite Mapper, data, I believe it, images. That's a lot of clicking. Inside your game directory right here, go with assets. Inside there, go with images. And all we're going to do is copy that newly created sprite sheet. So holding Control to copy it to make sure, and then just click and drag it over, and it should copy it in there, which I already have one in there. I'm going to replace it anyway, so Control, drag, and replace, copy and replace. So that's copy and replaced in there. So now we can open up code blocks again, and inside code blocks we want to load it up. So we can load it up with texture to access the SFML texture class. We're going to call this shield texture, because these are the textures for the shields. And then a semicolon, and then you can go shield texture dot load from file, and then inside the parameters the file will actually load, which is assets in this case, but make sure it's inside a string. This is very important to be inside a string. Assets / images / and then it was shields, I believe it was shields dot png, just like that. And then end that line with a semicolon. And now we've loaded it up. We're going to create a sprite. So we've loaded up the texture, and now we can create as many sprites as we want just using one texture, which is awesome. So then we go sprite, choose the SFML sprite class, sprite, and we're going to call this shield 1 or something. It doesn't really matter what we call it, shield 1. And then open up parameters. The parameters we want to give it is the actual texture, which in our case is shield texture. And then end that line with a semicolon, hit enter. So now we've given it the complete sprite sheet as the texture, which we don't want to do. Now we want to cut it out of the texture, out of the sprite sheet, I mean. So what we want to do is just, if you type, what was it? And type the name of your sprite, which in our case was shield1. This is just for demonstration. Shield1 dot set texture rect. So it's going to set the rectangle of the texture. Make sure it go with int rect to tell SFML that it's going to be int rect style argument. Almost parameters, and then finally, oh no, I copy and pasted before that, didn't I? I might have not. Finally, hit that long-awaited Control V button, and yes, so that is the coordinates of the sprite, the coordinates and the size of the sprite on the sprite sheet. And that one with a semicolon, and we can actually use this in the game. We can like draw it down here. We can scroll down into here. We can go window, and then dot to draw, and then opens parameters you give it is what you want to draw. So in our case, it's just shield1 or something like that. Shield1. And save it, run it, and we should have a shield being drawn on the screen, cut out of a sprite. And yes, we do. It's kind of hard to see, but we do have a very small little shield drawn on the screen. And it looks pretty awesome too. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this video on how to create sprites with GIMP. If you guys have any questions, comments, or any other videos that you'd like me to do, just let me know down in the comment section, and I'll consider doing them. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll be seeing you next video. HMRDL.